All right, let me go ahead and continue, guys. Apologize about the little sound quality there. I think we got everybody on now. Well, let me go ahead and get again. Let me just kind of restart this. Basically, what this presentation is about, you guys. And again, welcome. I'm glad you're here for 2020 to get started with something that should be very, very effective way to get your marketing off and running, and doing it with really the most powerful marketing vehicle that's available to any of us today, and that is video marketing. So what we're going to be talking about today specifically, you guys, there are a ton of different things that we could get into with video, and I will tell you that there's a lot of different processes that we will do in classes that we are going to be doing through Cindy Bishop training, but on video. But this one specifically is going to be talking about just some of the things that you need to be aware of and ways that you can make your video much more effective, to make it a lot more engaging and entertaining and able to really deliver the message that you want to. So with that, let's go ahead and move on. First step in creating good quality video with your phone, you guys, is to make sure that you have a goal for the story that you're going to be telling, to recognize the fact that video is telling a story. And I think most of you recognize that because you see video all the time, quite honestly. And this is something that's kind of interesting to me, you guys, is that it's like 82% of the content that is being consumed on the internet today is video. So this is nothing brand new that you guys are introduced to. You see it all the time, okay, on the internet. So that's why we want to make sure that what you guys are putting out, that that you have the tools to be able to make this as effective as possible. So, but here's a couple things to recognize about this whole process. Then is first of all, you need to have a goal for this. And there's 3 different ways that I think are the best way to approach the goal that you have for your video marketing. You either have something that is inspirational, you have something that is educational, or something that is entertaining. Okay, you know, so you want to make people excited. You want to make people, help them get smarter, and then you also want to be able to entertain them. You want to make them laugh sometimes. And if you can accomplish all 3 of those with the video, you've got something that's really going to be dynamic. In fact, it could go viral. So anyway, that's the first thing that you want to be able to do. Second thing is to choose the best approach to reach the goal that you have for that video. Okay, so in other words, and what I mean by that is what is the best way for you to get this thing done? Is it just sitting down in front of your camera and or your phone and talking? Is it incorporating other people? Is it an interview? Is it for instance, maybe what you're doing is you're showing a home, so you want to make sure that you've decided what's the best approach, the way that I want to be able to do this so that it's going to effectively tell the story. Okay. The third thing that it says there, set the tone. How do you want your audience to feel about this? Do you want them to be inspired, educated, entertained? How do you want them to feel? Maybe you want them to be real serious about it. Maybe, so it really does depend, but you need to be able to set the tone. Okay. For instance, one of the things that I know a lot of real estate agents have done, and so I've seen some very effective ones, and I've seen some that haven't been done very well. But one of the things that really all of you need to consider is to have a video that introduces who you are and what your business is all about and what makes you special at what you do. So you want to be able to set the tone of a video like that. Okay. So the next thing is choose a style. How should it look? How do you want this to appear to people? So there's a lot of those different kinds of details about this that you want to make sure that you've done. The next thing is then you want to take some time and outline the idea. And I will tell you, creating good video, you guys, is not something that sometimes it may be as easy as grabbing your phone, putting it on a tripod, making sure that you've got good lighting and those kinds of things, and talking. Sometimes that's all it takes. But in most cases, to put together something that is effective, that's going to communicate, that's going to tell the story well, you need to be able to take some time to plan it, to outline it. Okay, so you want to outline it. Now, the next step then is what I call it is preparing your story. Okay, so you kind of know what you want to do. You've kind of outlined it. This is where we're going. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to write your script. okay? And it needs to be your script. There are certainly things, if you did a search on Google, you could find all kinds of different video scripts out there. And you know what? Some of them are useful. In fact, I know that Cindy has a number of them on her website that you can have access to when you're part of the coaching plan. Here's the thing though, even those, you guys, you want to make sure that you've taken time to edit those scripts and make them your own. Make them something that really is, and like I say there, what you need to be able to do is deliver the message with your voice. So your audience recognizes this is something that they would say. These are the kinds of things that are important to them. This is why this is, you know, and why I should be paying attention to it. Okay. The next part, you guys, is to recognize really that this is about effective storytelling. Okay. Facts tell, stories sell. People are going to be more engaged when you are telling a story than if you're just delivering a bunch of facts. If you're delivering a bunch of bullet points like I am right here, you know, it's not nearly as effective as if you're telling a story. So the third thing then is focus on benefits, not on features. Okay. So, and I think most of you know what I'm talking about when I say that, but let me give you a really good example. You know, focusing in on what it is that you're presenting is going to do for that person, how that's going to help them, how that's going to educate them, how that's going to entertain them, rather than just giving them, here's the facts and the details. And a good example, like I said, is, you know, if to say something like, you know, my new Tesla can do, you know, 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. Okay, that's a feature. A benefit is, guess what? My new Tesla can blow away any Lamborghini, Ferrari, or any other hot rod machine that you have that's fast. I can blow you away. I can blow your doors off. Okay, that's a completely different thing. That's talking about a feature. All right. So the other thing that you want to make sure that you do, folks, and this is really important, and I've seen this, and I'm sure you guys can identify with what I'm going to say, is avoid what I would consider to be long or cheesy intros. Okay. Those things that, you know, and quite honestly, 5 seconds is an eternity on the internet. Anymore, you know, our attention span has gone away. It really has. Social media has kind of done that to us. But because of that, you need to make sure that you're concise, that you're telling your story, that you're delivering your message. Okay. And like it says there, avoid what sometimes can tend to be longer, cheesy intros. And let me give you a really good example, because if any of you search for recipes online, if you could give me a quick heads up, say yes on the chat screen, you guys on the group chat, I would appreciate it to let me know if any of you guys look for recipes online. But I do that a lot. And guess what? The ones that drive me nuts is where you feel like you have to read 3 or 4 pages of somebody, you know, telling a story about why they like this and all this kind of stuff. It's like, man, that's not why I came here. I came here so you could give me some information about this particular recipe that I want to learn. Okay. So, and most of you can probably relate to that. So that's the thing, is you don't want to get into these long, cheesy introductions. You want to make sure that you're getting right to the point. This is what I'm about. This is what this video is about, and why you really want to pay attention to this thing. Okay. The next part is, what will your call to action be? Okay. That to me is a really key part of this, you guys, is to make sure that you have told your audience that you've delivering this video story to. You want to be able to tell them why they're watching it. And part of that, you guys, is recognizing that when you put these things together, you want to know what your call to action is going to be, but what comes out of that is from that, then you want to make sure that you've incorporated that into the title of your video, the description of the video. All of those kinds of things relate to then how people are going to find that video on the internet. Okay. So call to action can be very important. No, you want to tell people this is exactly what you can expect and what I want you to do with the information that I'm giving you. Okay. So let's get into this then. Your video planning session. So here's what you're going to do, is you're going to take some time and say, okay, here's what I need to accomplish with this. So you're going to start working through this process of planning out exactly what it is that you want to accomplish with the video. I've got 4 questions up there that have become very important to decisions that you need to be making when you're putting this thing together. Okay, the first one is who? Who will be in your video? If you're including people, you need to get their permission. Okay, but here's one of the things that I would mention to you that I've seen real estate agents that have done very effective. They've been able to be very effective with these types of videos, and that's where they interview people. Okay, whether it's interviewing a client, whether it's interviewing a lender, whether it's, you think of that whole network of people that you have that surround you, that are part of every single transaction that you are involved with, folks, is that you've got this huge network of people that a lot of them have some really valuable information about real estate transactions that can be inspirational, that can be educational, that can be entertaining. So, you utilize those folks, utilize that network of people that you have, so in other words, you need to decide then who's going to be in it. It could be, like, for instance, if you're doing something about yourself, you may want to incorporate, a spouse or a pet or one of your kids, or could be any number of different people, animals, whatever, but you want to decide who's going to be in it, and you need to have that information ahead of time. Plan it out. This is what we're doing. This is where I'm going with it. And again, if you do have any people involved, you want to make sure that you get permission from them. Okay, and I would say written permission, just to cover yourself. Okay, next thing, what are the items? What are the props? What are the video tools that you're going to need for this? Make sure that you have things like microphone or microphones. It may be that you need a couple of them, those types of things. You need to make sure if you need a tripod, or if you need any other tools that could be involved in this, you need to make sure that you've got all of that stuff squared away. Okay, that you've got all of it, that it's all planned out. This is exactly what I need in order to be effective with this particular video. The next one, when. Scheduling the right time can be very important. All right, considering things like light, sound, potential distractions, those types of things. Okay, so that becomes very important, you guys, is you really need to start thinking about, when is this going to happen? Make sure if it needs to be scheduled with somebody, you need to make sure that it's scheduled ahead of time, right? That makes sense. But more than that, is really think about some of those other details. It may be that you're going to be filming outside. Guess what? You might want to check the weather for that day. If it's going to be snowing or raining or cloudy or whatever, and it's not going to be, conducive to the story that you're trying to tell, then guess what? You need to probably pick a different time. But you need to, again, this is the planning session. This is thinking through exactly how you're going to tell that story. All right. Next one is where. Where's this going to be? This might be in one place. It could be that you're going to be in several different places in order to tell the story properly. For instance, if you are one of those kind of people where you're going to be in a neighborhood, one of the neighborhoods that you're farming, or if you're going to be doing your particular story, maybe it's going to be, you're going to have some of the shots in your house, some of the shots in your office, some of the shots are going to be you going into one of those neighborhoods that you frequent often. All of those types of things, you want to determine what are the locations, okay? And what are the details that I need to know about those locations? Now, we're going to get into some of those details that you need to be aware of here in just a second, okay? But hopefully this is making sense, you guys. If you could give me a quick, raise your hand, say yes, tell me what you can on the group chat, that really helps a lot, you guys. So who, what, when, and where. Now, let's go ahead and move on here. The next part that we're going to be getting into then is what we would call, what I call visual storytelling. Okay, in this part of the planning phase, this is now when we're going to discuss the basics of shooting. So you can plan out exactly how to approach every single shot that you're going to be taking, every single one of those that you're going to be making part of this video. All right. So one of the ones that I will tell you about is, and this, now we're going to talk about specifically, like I said, some of those processes, some of those ways that you want to approach this. One of them is what a video people, movie editors, and anybody that's a photographer or a videographer uses this language, as they call it, framing. Okay, and that's to recognize that there is available, and this picture's a pretty good one because it definitely shows what I'm talking about, but there are available vertical or horizontal lines that help create visual frames that direct the viewer directly to what you want them to see. It could be in a situation where you're outside, and it may be a couple of trees. It may be the side of a building and something else. It might be that type of thing. But look for those types of visual elements that create horizontal and vertical lines, so that people can actually, it gives some direction to where it is that you want to point them when they're looking at that particular video. For instance, if you're in your home, you want to make sure that the framing that's around you is situated properly within the camera. Sometimes it might be a wall, could be a number of different things. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory there, but again, it's looking at those existing vertical and horizontal lines to create the visual frames to direct the viewer where you want them to go. All right. The next one, this is a concept, and for those of you, if you want to learn more about this, but I think I can give you a pretty good idea what the value of this is and how it fits into what our discussion is. And that's what photographers, artists, this has been something that's been part of art and visual imagery for as long as there's been artists, pretty much. It's what they call the rule of thirds, okay? Basically what it is you divide any framed image into 9 equal spaces, and to recognize that the most visually attractive place is within those intersecting points. So you can see where the boy's getting ready to kick the ball. You can see where his head is, and where the football are those intersecting points of those 9 equal squares. Okay, those 9 equal spaces. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb. In fact, it's kind of interesting that there's a number of cameras. I have a Samsung 10, okay? And basically on my camera, I have a setting when I'm getting ready to take a picture that will create that 9 equal spaces as a grid, so that I can actually fit it into my camera when I'm shooting, so or into my phone. But that's a really important thing to recognize, you guys, is that those, and if I took that football player and put him directly smack dab in the middle of that picture without any horizontal lines or framing lines or any of that kind of stuff to direct the attention, it's kind of boring. It really is. It's kind of a boring shot. It's a lot more visually stimulating if you can, and attractive, if you can place the key parts of what you want people to focus in on in those intersecting places on that, what they call the rule of thirds, okay? Lighting. Now we're going to get into really some of those things that really are some of the more critical parts of doing video. Okay, and this is a really good example, folks, of poor lighting versus, good lighting. Okay, the thing to recognize about this, you guys, is that good lighting will keep your audience engaged with you. Okay, engaged with your story. Poor lighting is going to run the risk of losing them. So one of the things that you recognize about this is that in the one picture, and this is probably taken in the exact same room, I have no doubt about this. So in the one on the left, basically what you see, folks, is you see the woman, and she's lit well, she looks attractive, all that kind of stuff. And you can see, and if she was talking, you would be able to, that message would come across much better than if she was talking in the one on the right. Here's the difference. She's using one of the very best sources of light that we have available, and that's sunlight. Okay, so she's next to her window, on the shot on the left, and that sunlight then allows, it comes in and it lights her well. Okay, the one on the right, as you can see, she's sitting right in front of the window. So now that source of light becomes backlighting, and her face and the rest of her is all in shadow. So it makes it very difficult, and it's not nearly as engaging. It's not nearly as entertaining, and you're gonna lose them if you're not lit well. Okay, so that's another really key part to remember, you guys. One of the things that I would suggest too is there are some tools, and there is another class that I do. There's another webinar that I do. There are tools that we have available that basically talk about some inexpensive tools that you can purchase that will kind of give you some things to create a very simple studio type situation. Okay, and the reality of it is most of these things that I share with you, when I get into talking about these tools, I'm not going to do that today. That's not what this presentation is about. But I did want to at least mention it to you so that you know it's something that we want to make sure that you have available to you. Okay, but I'll talk about things like simple lighting, things that you can purchase, simple types of tools that you can use like tripods and those types of things, things that you can use. And since we're talking about lighting, that's exactly what I wanted to point out to you, is that there's some ways, for instance, like right now, the way I'm lit from mostly from the front, also from the side as well, but mostly from the front with a lamp that I have. It's real simple, just a desk lamp that I have that so you guys can see a much better image of my face while I'm talking. Okay. But anyway, that becomes very crucial though, you guys. So you want to make sure that as you set up each shot, as you set up every single place that you're going to be taking video content that's going to create this story, you want to make sure that the lighting is done well, that you don't have shadows covering up the particular part of the video that you're trying to show people. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on from this. The next thing, these are just some additional recommendations that I would make to you. First of all, always shoot in landscape. Okay, that's the best way to do this. You want to shoot in landscape because that's the way most video that you see on the internet is done in landscape. The only place that there is, it might make sense to actually do it in portrait mode or vertical, is actually on Instagram. Okay, Instagram stories sometimes it's better shot if you do it with that. Other than that, you guys, everything else that you see on the internet comes in that widescreen kind of format. So you want to be using horizontal when you're doing it. The other thing to recognize is that it's good to have a stabilizer. Okay, if you have a tripod, I have a thing called, and hopefully you guys can see this in my camera, this is a thing called a gimbal. This is a great tool that I've used, Gimbel. But this is another great tool that I use that will stabilize the camera. Okay, but even if you don't, recognize the fact that if you get to where you're holding your phone in the four corners, that you can keep it relatively still. And what you want to do is think in terms of, okay, I am now a tripod. Okay, you're now a tripod. So, but anyway, you want to be able to do that, you guys. You want to be able to use the phone so that you're not, it's not moving around, it's not jarring and that kind of thing. But you want to be able to hold it firmly and be able to do what you need to. Now, that goes back one bullet point, if you will, to things like tilt, pan, and slide. Okay, tilt is very simple. Tilt is up and down, right? And sometimes that makes things very effective. Hold on a sec here, guys. We have somebody that's jumping in. Let me make sure I admit them. But so tilt again, up and down. And again, if certain things that you might be getting, a home, to be able to show this is the entrance, and you're able to tilt and show exactly what it is that is happening, or what you want to be able to show people. You can get a lot more visual imagery and tell the story much better with that. Then pan is basically left to right, and it's just like a panoramic type situation. Okay, so you want to be able to do that. There are certain times where the best thing to do is pan, and slide is something a little bit different. Pan is is real slow. Slide is just where you're doing it back and forth. Okay, so and the last one and this is a suggestion, a recommendation, you guys, is every single phone that you have with the camera on the phones that we have, you guys, has what's called digital zoom. Okay, so when it says you zoom into something, don't use the digital zoom on a phone. These phones have gotten so sophisticated with the kind of cameras that they have in them. They really are, and there's so much you can do with them. But one of the things that most phones have not perfected, I haven't found one yet, has perfected zooming. And what I mean by that is if you have a fancy DSLR Canon camera of some sort, you will be able to zoom, and it's going to basically adjust as your camera is moving in and out. But when you use the zoom feature on a phone, it doesn't work that well. When you zoom in on something, basically it becomes choppy when it's done in video. And the other thing is the quality of the picture does not adjust as you are moving in closer to that particular subject with the zoom feature on the phone. Okay, so if you want to zoom in on something, and that's a very good thing to do, is zoom, but you want to do it yourself. You become the digital zoom. Right, you are. So you're basically going to take it and just move in towards your subject. All right. So again, another helpful recommendation. Sound. Okay, here's something that I want to present to you guys that honestly, sound can be the most important part of it. Okay, it really is. Those of you that couldn't hear me early on when we started this thing, this would have, even if my slides were visually entertaining and inspirational and educational, guess what? You wouldn't have paid a lick of attention if you couldn't hear what I was saying. Okay, so recognize the fact that audio, and like it says here, when your audio is clear, the right volume, and free of any distractions, your video project is going to still be an overall success, and you're going to get much better results from it. Okay, so a couple things to recognize about this. Number one, sound is very important. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to it. Buy a lapel microphone. It's an inexpensive way to give your message clarity. I have one that I use that is, I think it cost me 22 bucks or something like that on Amazon. And what it does is it then allows me, when I am videoing something, when I'm shooting video, it allows me to connect it directly to my phone. I put it on my lapel, and that way, and here's the reason I say that. If you're taking your camera and you're using the microphone on your phone, that is away from you. Okay, the microphone's going to pick it up a lot closer, and it's going to be a lot clearer representation of your voice. You're not going to have any distance between you and the microphone on your phone. All right, hopefully that makes sense. But that's the reason why these lapel mics can be a very, very important tool to get. So if you haven't got one, I would say you want to go ahead and jump on Amazon, find just lapel microphone. Lapel mic will help you get it. Okay, so buy one of those. The next one is be aware of sounds that are or could be a distraction. All right, so consider the fact of where you're shooting. If you're shooting outside, you want to be aware of traffic noises. You want to be traffic of any kind. Might be cars, might be people. If you're in a park, it could end up being noisy. But the thing is some of those sounds may be the kinds of sounds that makes this video more entertaining. So you want to consider all of those different features of the sounds that are involved in your video. Okay, so again, but you also want to be aware of those sounds that could be a distraction. I know there's a lot of people that are on this probably that are somewhere around, or have spent time in Chantilly, Centerville, Fairfax, some of those areas, but especially Chantilly and Centerville, where, or Reston or Sterling, where you're in close proximity to Dulles Airport. An airplane can be a really noisy distraction. So you want to be careful of those types of noises and be aware of them as they're in your video, because if you live in those areas, you don't even recognize them. You forget that those planes are going overhead, but someone's going to hear it on that video, and might potentially distract them from paying attention to your story. All right. The other thing to consider, folks, is most of the editing software that's out there is going to get into ways that you can incorporate background music to fit it into the video. Okay. Background music can be very important. It can be very effective. It can help you tell your story, but make sure that it fits the mood of your story. All right. If you want something that's going to be kind of soft and easy and comforting and inspirational, you don't want to be playing Metallica. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of a best way to describe what I'm getting to. But choose background music that fits the mood of what your story is all about, or what you're trying to tell, and that it communicates well. Okay. The other thing too, folks, is to recognize that there's very few times that you ever want to have music that includes somebody singing. That doesn't help you. It basically just needs to be instrumental. I think most people would. That's simple enough to say. Okay, move on. Let's talk about B-roll for just a moment. This may be a term that you may or may not be familiar with. Let's go ahead and talk about it. B-roll footage is any video content that is considered to be secondary to the primary footage. Okay. B-roll is normally, it's gathered separately, okay, and it's acquired from stock footage, or it can be acquired from stock footage. There's some different websites that are available out there where you can go out and actually purchase. Sometimes you could buy it, you can get it where it's free, you know. So there's a lot of different options that are available for stock footage if you want to be able to get some additional B-roll, okay, and it needs to be planned in advance. Now, let's get into a little more specifics about what I mean by B-roll. Literally what it is, you guys, is it's those pieces of video that it's, for instance, and let me give you an example. If you're doing a video about yourself, you're telling your story. You're telling people this is why, you know, you may want to consider doing business with me. Okay, that type of thing. So, you know, it may be that some of the B-roll is not going to be them looking at you telling the story, but it may be showing you engaging with somebody or having a conversation with someone. It may be you writing something. It may be you typing on your computer. It may be you doing something else, okay? It may be you walking. You know? So in other words, think through some of those little snippets, and these are, like I said, they're little pieces of video content. They could be 1 or 2 seconds. They could be as much as 5 to 5, 6, 7 seconds. That may be a little long for B-roll. But the point is, you guys, is this is bits of video content that help when you put it all together in one seamless video, it tells the story. Okay. And let me give you a really good example. When I did a search on YouTube of B-roll footage, one of the things that came up a couple of times was probably the best example. So for any of you that have not seen the movie Gladiator, that's an old movie. It's been out there for a while, with Russell Crowe. But one of the iconic B-roll footage scenes, which really helped distinguish and tell the story, and it was just a simple scene of Russell Crowe walking through a wheat field with his hand kind of dragging behind him. Okay, and it didn't show his head. All it showed was his hand and maybe the side of his hip, and it showed the wheat field, and it showed his hand going through there. That was really powerful, and with the music that was playing, it's a very inspirational example of what I mean by B-roll. So that's what you want to be able to do, is plan this in advance. What are you going to have? What are the shots that I need to incorporate into my video? They're going to help tell my story. So here's some final recommendations to consider. First of all, once you've started shooting, don't stop. Here's why I say that. For instance, if you're doing this where you're the one that's doing the talking, and in most cases, you guys, this is where people stumble on this, is they'll sit there, and I've done it myself a lot, okay? But the point is that, you know, you'll start talking, you're going through your script and you're following along, and all of a sudden you say something dumb, or you miss something up, or you mispronounce a word, and you go, oh, shouldn't have done that. And then you stop and you start all over again. You know, don't do that. Don't stop. Just continue on, roll right through it. Okay. It may be that you can splice different pieces of the video as you've doing it over, that you can splice them together, that you can cut different parts out. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with video editing software. But more importantly is that whole stopping and starting routine tends to get people frustrated. Okay. You don't want to be frustrated with this. You want to be confident. You want to be clear with your message. You want to make sure that you are delivering this thing and telling the story in a really powerful way. And again, video is the best way to do it. So make sure you're doing this. Once you started shooting, don't stop. You can do it over. Next one. It is not the camera. Okay. So in other words, I know sometimes people get intimidated by the fact that they put this thing on and they hit play and they see themselves talking and they're like, oh man, what am I doing? So they get a little freaked out by all that stuff. Well, here's the thing. Look at it as a person. Pick one of your favorites, you know, your mom, a spouse, a kid, whoever it is, your best friend. Pick somebody who's a favorite, somebody that you would tell this particular message to, this story that you're delivering. You know, look at it like them and pick and visualize them as, you know, the phone has now become that person. So the next thing is try it with an interviewer. Okay. It helps get over the fear of the camera. And here's what I mean by that. And that's interviews can be a very effective thing for real estate agents. We talked about that earlier, is incorporating some of those other people that you work with, you know, whether it's a lender or a title person or, you know, another agent or whatever it is, but those other people that you work with frequently, but to be able to spend time just interviewing them and capturing some of that video to help kind of get over the fear of the camera thing. Because a lot of us have that, you guys, quite honestly. The other one, remember to have a good call to action. Make sure you tell people what this is about and what you're trying to accomplish with your video, your story. Use creative B footage like we were just talking about, you guys, that B-roll, okay? Close-ups, aerial. If you have a drone, that's awesome. You know, if you can get a hold of one or know somebody that has one, knows how to use it, that's really good. Then it's talking about varied pans, you know, again, talking about panning, talking about tilting, those types of things. You want to make sure that you're creative with the kinds of B-roll that you have, that footage that you put together. So hopefully this has given you guys some good tools. Okay. I really appreciate you being here this afternoon. Let me kind of open this up to the chat to go ahead and say if you have any questions, if you want to type them in. I'm here and I'm ready and happy and willing to answer them for you. And Cindy, let me again invite you if you would like to. I'm unmuting you, by the way. So
text, because I want them to know about the video sessions that we are creating right now that will be available that'll be available shortly, so that they can get individual sessions with you. And that will be very valuable, because one thing we've seen is that even the people in our coaching programs, they don't get that. They get accountability, they get planning, they get all kinds of stuff, but to learn how to do a video, you know, nobody gets that. So not in any coaching program that I'm aware of. So this will be available shortly. So many of you that are on the call, you should email us directly. Just email the school and let me know that you're interested in that, because we're going to give those people that have reached out to us, with many have already done that, they're going to get a special. Where they get on the phone with Dave join me over a Zoom, and they actually do video. And they actually get all these different kinds of things done. So there's a breakdown. Dave, how many would you say that we were going to do? We've got probably as many
different
as 5
sessions.
or 6.
Yeah. I would say at least minimum of 4. And I would say if someone takes every single one of them, the eventuality is that we're going to be able to create a video from what we've done. That right. You know, right. that will be the end result, is that they will have something that they can be proud of. Brooke asked a question. Let me go ahead and address that. Brooke asked a question: any recommendations for editing software for a PC? Yes, there is. There's a couple of them that I can give you. 2 that I've probably had the most success with. The one that I use the most is Adobe. Let me go ahead and type it in here so you have the correct one, because Adobe has probably the best one, you guys, but it's also very expensive. But the one that I use is not as expensive. It's called Adobe Photo Elements. Okay, so so that's the one that I use the most. Okay, there is a cost to it. I spent right around $100 for it. Okay. The other one that I found recently, you guys, that I am really beginning to like, and I'm going to start using it more. And it is one it's kind of an interesting way that they do it. It's called Hit Film Express. Okay. It's another one that could be a very effective one for PC. And the reason that I kind of like it is it's free, and you can do a lot with the free version. But what they do is that as you get better, and this is the thing that I like, as you get better at using their editing software, you start going, well, wow, I wish it could do this. And you realize, hey, Hit Film Express has that, and you can purchase that particular thing, whatever it might be, an add-on feature that would make your video that much more effective. And those add-ons are very inexpensive. So the bottom line is it's a really smart way to do it. I think it's one of the smartest ways I've seen as far as good free editing software. Couldn't see the name. Oh,
it's on the chat room.
Yeah, it's on the chat room. For Mac users, I would say, quite honestly, you guys have, you should have available just through Mac, iMovie. And iMovie, let me type that one in.
Oh, it's fabulous.
Yeah, it is very, oh, good. Oh, you know what? I apologize, you guys. I know why they can't see it.
Yeah, why can't they see it? Because
I'm sending it to you. Okay.
Oh, that's why. That would be a good reason.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. You know, when you're giving the presentation, sometimes you miss some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I put that in wrong. Adobe Photo Elements. Express. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. I think they'd rather have
There we go. There we go. Good. So Hit Film Express, and then for Mac, iMovie is, and from what I understand, iMovie should be free. You know, it should be just part of, you know, just owning a Mac, having that software available. So good questions, you guys.
Well, you can actually do it right on your phone, but I don't know who can see their phone. I know I can't. So if they have a computer, an Apple computer, then they have that stuff available to them. It's pretty cool.
Right. And here's the suggestion to you guys, and I'm glad you brought that up, Cindy. But one of the things that is important to recognize about this to you guys is when you are in the editing phase, that's the most time-consuming part of it, okay? Let me address yours here in a second, Sharon. But the thing that I was going to tell you is that do the editing on a desktop. That's really the best way to do it. More screen, more available to you. Don't try to edit your stuff on a phone, you guys. You can. There's some software available that you can do it, but it's not nearly as effective as being able to have a larger screen, much more information available to you that you can do. By the way, the gimbal, the one that I got, you guys, and this would be my recommendation. It's DJI, and it's the number 3 version. So let me go ahead and type that into the chat box for the gimbal. So there we go. That is the gimbal that I have and use, and it's a great tool. I love it. I really do. And I know I'm not using it nearly as effectively as I can yet, but I'm looking forward to learning and getting really good at it, because it's unbelievable what you can do with a gimbal, you guys. So literally what it is it's like having a gyroscope for your phone, where it's going to avoid you moving around. So it's going to be a very effective way to shoot it. But anyway, good. There's no other questions, you guys?
Good presentation. Yeah.
Good. Hopefully it was, you guys. Yeah. And Cindy, this will be available on, you want to tell them where the video is going to be available?
Yeah, it's going to be available at cindybishoptraining.com. That's our coaching site, and it will be under videos. So if you go to there's not that many menu selections, but the one that says tools, and there's you go down, you click on that, and then there's a video button, and it'll be there. And once we have your video training up, Dave, it'll be on there as well. So.
Okay, good, perfect. Well, this is great, you guys. Hey, I appreciate you being here, and you know, again, looking forward to seeing the videos that you guys are going to have out this year. So. Thank you again for attending today. This was great.